In this video, I'm going to explain to you why only 49 quant, yes, 49 can and will make you a crypto millionaire. So in this video, I'm going to break it down for you with maths first and then the supporting evidence as to why I would actually go ahead and say this at all, right? Quite outlandish, but trust me, the maths lines up. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is, bang, 49 quant. What does that look like right now? Well, that's about $6,000. With the current price in the market being about $122 a pop, right? Now, 12 months ago, you might be surprised to see that this was pretty much the same price on the dot, right? This was the equivalent of 49 dot 12 months ago. Now, in the future, what is this looking like for my price prediction? All right, hear me out. So, we need price ranges, right? It's easy for us to go ahead and say, well, this is what I expect it to be at the blow off top, but let's be realistic here, okay? So, I'm expecting a minimum of 12x, okay, from this current price. And that's going to pretty much mean that the $6,000 is going to be $73,500, which is about $1,500 per quant token. Where do I think the next bull market will go at its absolute peak? Yeah, this is like pushing a prediction, right? You shouldn't look at this as guaranteed. This is kind of like the dream, okay? And I'm expecting about a $5,300 quant token. It's about a 44x, and that would pretty much put the 49 quant tokens at just over $250,000. I know, fantastic results. No one can deny that. However, that's not $1 million, right? Now, keep in mind, I do have a disclaimer down here that this price right here would be, if all the tokens were in circulation, approximately $80 billion market cap, okay? $80 billion. Now, can that happen? I absolutely do think so, okay? But that all depends on a few variables. Again, it could definitely go higher, but that's kind of like on the higher end of things. Now, this is where the true fun comes in, okay? And some of you guys that are a bit conservative out there might freak out, okay? 2029 price prediction. I'm expecting a minimum of 54x, okay? So that you can see the goalpost kind of moving up from here, and that's going to be about a $6,700 quant token at the minimum, which would mean that this 49 quant would then blow up into $328,000. But guess what? This is my prediction for the top of that market, a $33,600 quant token, more or less 275x in your return. Therefore, your ROI is, let's just say, $1.6 million. Essentially, you've just turned $6,000 into $1.6 million. Call me crazy, but I honestly do think that quant, out of any cryptocurrency right now, is probably one of the best kind of I can say and use this outlandish result with, okay? Because I believe, and these 5 examples I'm going to give you in a second, quant can do it, right? I know a lot of you quant maxis out there would probably agree with me, okay? So you're going to have some of you in the comment section, but dude, that is just not possible. But it is. Let's break it down. But of course, as you guys know, I am not a financial advisor. Do not take anything I say as financial advice. I suggest you screenshot this. This is what I'm personally doing and what I'm thinking myself, so please go ahead at your own discretion, okay? Now, one thing I want to say is these videos, I've made them in this format so you can actually go ahead and screenshot the slides behind me. So that way you can kind of keep up to speed with all of the tokens I review, so you're the most informed, right? Without having to write things down in your notes sections, okay? So the first of all, now this is actually the most important thing. Take out your initial investment on those forecasts. So the minimum I had for the forecasts, when it hits that price, this is at least what I'm doing, remember, I am taking my initial investment out. If I put in $6,000, that $6,000 is coming back out again. And then remember, ladder sell the rest, okay? This is proven to be the safest and most effective method for making money, okay? Yes, it might not yield you the most results. Selling at the absolute peak definitely will be, but that never, ever happens, okay? You're not a genius. I'm not a genius. None of us are geniuses. And if we've learned anything from previous bull markets, especially if you're new to crypto, trust me with what I am saying, okay? Now, the first point, institutional demand, right? So there is going to be infinite application for quant. Why? Well, it pretty much connects legacy, enterprise-grade, crypto, private networks all together, plus any API-related application. This can be any social media applications. This can literally be your local grocery store that uses the internet, for example. Okay, this can be literally anything. Quant is actually the business model of quant is to literally connect the world. I believe that's kind of like one of their slogans, the network of networks, right? It really is, okay? Now, Web 2 absorption, right? This is something that other networks can't say, right? Quant is actually solving real issues that face Web 2 companies, not just Web 3. We find with Web 3 based companies that are solving a Web 3 related thing, that's something that's only been created because we're kind of creating this cryptocurrency sort of narrative, right? And they've kind of solving an issue created from this new industry, right? Not Quant. Quant is actually solving very real issues that have not been solved before in the world as we know it, okay? Quant is also known as a white label service, meaning that the extent of its adoption is unknown. So other companies can actually use the Quant network and kind of repackage it as their own sort of network and say, hey, this is what we're doing. They're leveraging Quant, but they don't have to tell their users and their customers that they're leveraging Quant, essentially. So we don't really know the extent of how deep the connections really are, okay, or the partners, right? Next is supply. They have a finite supply of only 14.8 million tokens. Yes, that is less than Bitcoin's 21 million. They have zero inflation as well. And you might be thinking, Kyron, mate, how is this possible? And I say to you, because it's highly denominal, which pretty much means that you can have a very low supply because the token itself can be divvied up into, cents. So you can turn one Quant token into like 18 decimal places, right? And have a whole, small denominations of the actual one Quant token, okay? And also, this is what I love, it is fantastic with utility, right? Other networks, can't absorb token demand as much because pretty much at the base layer, it's not used as much, right? I always go ahead and say networks, they kind of develop into, a utility, right? Look at Ethereum, for example. The base token Ethereum is used for gas and stuff like that. And that's pretty much all it really does. That's why there's so much demand for the token, right? There's that one principle. So while, networks might start off very basic with their token utility, they can grow into something very, very special. But Quant's pretty much starting off, it's like the premium sort of utility for the network, right? Which is the number one thing, which is using as a token transfer, right? They need it in gateway nodes to stake to actually become a gateway node, of course, and token transfers. Everything's built around the Quant token on the Quant network, which is fantastic because there's always going to be utility, therefore always token demand for any sort of customer using the network, all right? Number 3 is their partnerships. Now, again, this is something we don't really know because Quant is a white label service. We don't know the extent of this, but we do know that they have some huge ones actually in the open public, right? So number 1 is LACchain. LACchain is a blockchain tech for Latin America. These guys are actually using Quant for interbank interoperability. So LACchain is pretty much just like interconnecting the Americas and ensuring that, banks can communicate and all that sort of stuff. Pretty much, pushing blockchain tech to all the institutions and the central banks. And, they're using Quant, right? So Oracle also is the world's largest database company. And these guys have 400,000 customers themselves, okay? So you can more or less see these guys as, the database company, but more or less kind of like Chainlink, right? It's just like a real life Oracle business, okay? You also have UST. This is huge. These guys are a digital transformation company, which just pretty much means they help businesses transition from Web 2 or the real life business models to Web 3 business models, which is super important, right? Now, these guys are actually working with central banks and commercial banks to help them migrate to this new existing world, which, as we're seeing with like the Fed now, for example, and CBDCs, that stuff's pretty important, right? So this is a huge partnership. Number 4, business first. This is something people forget, and that really annoys me because you gotta remember, Quant is centralized, and it pretty much forever will be centralized, all right? Until there's an X amount of gateway nodes, okay? And even then, they're centralized, all right? So Quant is a business pretty much leveraging cryptocurrency. All its association with cryptocurrency is it's a token, and its token is simply a smart contract on Ethereum, leveraging it as a settlement layer, okay? So people get confused. You got to look at Quant as a business and just be thankful that they're leveraging crypto so us degens, can buy their token, all right? As simple as that. Now, we're going to come into some points in a second, some concerns that actually have a negative side of this, okay? So stay tuned. Now, expect changes, all right? So the team will move first, and then they're gonna update the community, all right? So don't expect them to be this whole decentralized narrative sort of situation. They're a business, and they're a centralized business, all right? Now, number 5, map businesses. So the decentralized application service on Quant itself. They're called maps, multi-chain applications, pretty much because they are built on top of Quant and can interconnect with any network they like, so long as those permissions are accepted, all right? So that pretty much, there's, unprecedented creation possibilities, endless interoperability, endless possibilities. Let your imagination run wild as long as networks allow these map businesses to interconnect. But what this truly means is, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you know what embedding means, right? Entire businesses will be created on a so-called map, and therefore, well, multiple maps, therefore relying on the Quant token. Again, they're built on Quant, which pretty much the Overledger network, which pretty much uses the Quant network, the Quant token for absolutely everything. So therefore, these services, these maps rely on the infrastructure, and therefore Quant has embedded itself in full Web 2 business models, which is super, super powerful, okay? Now, I want to touch on these concerns, okay? So number one, they could do a 180 and stop using their ETH smart contract. They are only as tied to the Quant token as a settlement layer. Now, this is kind of like a very outlandish statement, and this might cause some FUD. So I want to be very careful with what I say here. And I'm just saying it because, well, look down below. What's the channel name, right? I got to bring this to you. 100% what's in my mind, I want to push to you as well, okay? So theoretically, if Quant and all of its providers went, okay, you know what, we're going to accept the migration from this, smart contract on Ethereum, and let's just go, use fake tokens, right, or whatever. Let's just make our own sort of economy. They could do that, right? There's no absolute bound ties as long as everyone on that network agrees to it, and you can kind of say this with every network I know. But what I'm saying is, there's a very real possibility that could happen. Okay, I'm just saying it's a possibility. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just letting you know at least. And one thing I wanted to say was 270,000 tokens were actually kept by the team and weren't actually announced when they burnt their tokens on the smart contract. Now, I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty here because I've made multiple videos on Quant now, but more or less, they had a whole heap of tokens. They burnt a whole heap of tokens, and we were left with a certain amount. It was about 14.6 million, okay? And then what actually happened is someone I know that I'm not too sure if I should announce on this channel, announce on this video at least, because I've definitely announced him on the channel before. He actually said that there's actually about 270,000 Quant tokens still out there, and it turns out, from what we can see, is the team actually held them. Whether the team gave them to partners, we're not too sure, okay? But nevertheless, there were 270,000 unannounced tokens, which pretty much means, well, we don't know what happened to them. And as far as I'm aware, we don't know, what's actually happened with those tokens thus far, okay? So this isn't too concerning. Coin Market Cap, I checked that before I made the video, obviously, and it turns out they've updated their Coin Market Cap, circulating supply or total supply rather, to actually show that. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to say. Just keep an eye. I'm sure Quant's going to address this if they haven't already, so just keep that in mind, guys, okay? Now, if you do want to learn more about Quant, and I suggest you do, again, I've got some videos up the top right-hand corner of your screen. They'll also be on screen now. Go ahead and watch them. I go into the really nitty-gritty with Quant and how everything works, and I also do an overview of Quant with my other price prediction, which is a conservative price prediction, okay? So they're going to be on screen now, and I hope you have enjoyed this video, guys. If you have any questions, leave them down below, and until next time, bye.